Good evening and welcome to the Finance Subcommittee for the Brockton School Committee for Tuesday, March 23rd. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and state of emergency, on March 12th, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GL, Chapter 30A, Section 20. Pursuant to that order, public bodies are temporarily relieved from the open meeting law's requirements that meetings be held in public places open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure the public's access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. This meeting will be held and will be accessible to the public via Brockton Community Access, Brockton Public Schools website, www.bpsma.org, YouTube, and Comcast Channel 98. The public can access this meeting via this link, www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. All right, so first thing, I need to call the roll to establish a quorum. Mayor Sullivan.
Here.
All right, D'Agostino is here. Ms. Asak.
Here.
Mrs. Mendez. Mr. Minicello.
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Here.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Yeah.
Mr. Sullivan.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Our agenda for the evening is as follows: FY 2022 School Department budget, and then any other business needs to come before Finance. With that, Superintendent Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. D'Agostino. So we want to kind of do this budget in phases. So we're going to start with operations, things that we need facility-wise as we move into next year, and obviously we move away from COVID, but we also look to maintain enough space for social distancing. What we need for facilities, as you know, ESSER money is coming in, and not all of that can be spent on personnel. We have to spend money that actually, things that will be around for 30 years to allow staff, teachers to do their job. And so we're going to start with operations. Obviously, we'll come back with staffing, because obviously we're going to need teachers and additional teachers, guidance counselors, adjustment counselors, paras and MTAs, and we'll do that in phases, and that will be our next meeting. We are vetting out all the positions now with our principals and department heads and directors, and we'll come back to you with the staffing needs. We did put ads out, as this committee approved last week, so we can get a jump on recruiting and hiring. And again, there will be obviously staffing needs, but we're going to start with operations, see what we need for facilities, for upgrades, additions at some facilities, and then we'll work towards staffing at the next meeting. So I'm going to turn it over to Aldo and Dr. Cobbs, who did a ton of work today, then met with me and to go over operational costs and what we think that the school committee needs to take into consideration for funding next year.
Good evening. So as we met, we began with looking at some of the larger items that we think we need operationally, and also items that really stick out that are prevalent. We need to move on to, immediately. So some of the smaller items aren't here yet. We'll bring them up at later budget meetings. But our most pressing issue right now is number one on the pages I handed out: modular classrooms. So we have schools where we don't have the luxury of moving our kids all over the city to make them, fit into the schools they're at. So we try and get as many, students in a certain zone, a certain area into that school. So that being the case, we've got some schools that need additional classrooms. So on the list here, you'll see South, Ashfield, Downey, Gilmore, West, East. I'll let Dr. Cobbs fill you in on what these modular classrooms are like, what they'll do for us.
Over here. Good evening. So as Aldo said, we're looking for more space for students, particularly to maintain spacing. So we got classrooms. The modular units are 12 by 64, and they actually, put two of them together on site, make it a 48 by 64. So each piece is a two classrooms, so essentially 2 units that are 48 by 64 inches will have 2 classrooms, and another one will be attached to that. So we'll end up with 4. Particularly at West Middle School, South Middle School, we'll have 4 new classrooms. Same with Ashfield, we'll have 6 new classrooms, Downey 6 classrooms, Gilmore 4 classrooms, East Middle School 4 classrooms. So what we built in here is a cost per, you see that first year, that cost per classroom per year. So you can see it's extended out for the fiscal '22 budget for $122,000. So that's kind of, and then obviously we have to get them installed on site, do electrical wiring to them. Each classroom setup will have 2 bathrooms in it, and then one will be open completely for more classroom space. The bathrooms they won't be plumbed to the building except for where we're replacing the ones at the Downey School and the Ashfield School. The other units will have a service come out and clean the toilets and pump them every week. So there's no need for plumbing on site for those. They fill the water tank and they pump the toilet tanks to clean.
So just to go over, the Ashfield currently, they'll be taking out the modulars that are there. They'll be replaced with these new ones. Same with the Downey. They currently have modulars at both those locations. These would be new to east, to south, to Gilmore, and to west as well. So again, trying to keep students in their neighborhood schools. We're trying to have more programs in schools so we don't have to continue to bus students. Like, as you know, bilingual students, we usually, if there's a program they need to take, then they have to leave their neighborhood schools. So this is another way to get, keep our students in the neighborhood school, allow teachers to have more space. Our middle schools are still, even though we have lost enrollment, most of that enrollment is at the elementary level. And we are going to be, and we'll go over this later, we are going to be starting a marketing campaign to get those 900 students back to us. But again, some of these modulars are replacements. The Downey, the Ashfield, they need to be replaced. They've been there for a very long time. Places like the Davis, we'll redo the outside, but we redid the inside of the Davis modulars and the Kennedy. We did those actually fully over, I think 3 years ago. So those are in good shape. And again, these other ones to add is just providing more classroom space so we can continue to keep students in their neighborhood school.
On the right-hand side of your page, you'll see what I tried to do was source out how we're going to pay for these items as we go down. Right now, we know we have our local budget, but we also have this ESSER 2 funds, which are coming in through our Title I grant. That's a pretty good amount of money to do these kind of one-off projects. And I put other for now because there's talk that there might be some additional CARES Act money coming our way, and there might even be another stimulus. So as we progress into the budget, as those come up, they all have certain uses and certain end dates. So accounting-wise, we try and use up the funds we have to use first. But the ESSER 2 is great for these modular classrooms.
Although, just for people who may not be as familiar, ESSER, is that an abbreviation for something?
Elementary and secondary,
Sorry to put you on the spot.
something, Reinvestment Act.
Stimulus.
It's stimulus funds from the government.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Get our schools up and running. So ESSER 1 we had this year was about $4 million. Next year, we're looking at a little over $15 million. So when we have till September of '23 to spend it, so.
And then ESSER 3, those numbers have not come out yet. There was a meeting today. Dr. Cobbs, you attended the meeting with the commissioner. And ESSER 3 is, I think it was, I think June told me she attended the meeting with the commissioner today, Zoom. And we should soon be hearing from the Department of Ed what the ESSER 3, which was the latest $1.9 trillion package. The city is getting their aid, but the school aid will be separate from that, and that will come through Title I. And we're hearing from what the Bill Bell, the financial CFO for the DES, he said it's going to be bigger than the last 2 stimulus packages. So he said it's going to be very large. So that money isn't counted in any of here.
Right.
Yes.
But that'll give us an opportunity, if it comes through, and it's an if still, but if it comes through, that'll give us an opportunity to do some things that we've needed to do for a long time and have just
Yes.
had to Band-Aid together.
Yes, this is the time, as you'll see, as we go through here, time to bring on more craftsmen and repair our buildings and get everything, in shape to last another 10, 15 years. So
Right.
the timing is just right for us.
Great.
The Vice Chairman, if I could, just give a quick
Please.
update. It's still on point, it's a little off topic, though, relative to the CARES Act money, the $18 million that we're entitled to. I had a meeting yesterday in my office with Tom O'Brien, the county treasurer, and also Greg Hanley, the chairman of the county. Under the standards, they would have up until the end of the calendar year, December 31st, to replenish us, to make us whole. They've made a commitment that they're going to do it before the end of the fiscal year, so the end of June. It'll be the full $18 million. So I know that Aldo and Troy Clarkson have been working diligently to submit the reimbursements, but we will realize the full $18 million by the end of the fiscal year, which is awesome.
That's
Awesome.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
So the modular classrooms is great. I mean, that's something we've needed there. We do need more space. We're on item number 2, Promise School Intervention School, or Intervention Center. We're going to hopefully put out an RFP for some classroom space to do that. And I put an estimate down of what I felt about 8,500 square feet might cost us. And then along with that, some operating expenses, utilities, gas, electric, to run the center.
Yeah, so the Promise School, which will open with a small amount of students next year, but also the Intervention Center that was very successful prior to COVID, it was at North. We built out the shops, we cleaned out the shops at North. Obviously, North is adding another grade next year, so Intervention Center has to move from there, and it is good to have it in a separate location because it also includes high school students. So the Intervention Center obviously is a center that was created. It was actually a joint task force between the BEA and administration that came up with this 2 years ago. Sharon Wolder, Kim Gibson, they put a lot of work into this. And the Intervention Center actually was successful. Some parents were actually asking for students to stay longer. And it's an intervention to prevent from out-of-school suspension. So in lieu of long-term suspensions, for mostly discipline issues that are behavioral and disruptive in schools, instead of, obviously, we do not want to suspend students. So an intervention center where they would go, receive wraparound services, academic support, and then they would go back to their sending school with some things in place so they could work towards, improving behavior rather than punishing.
Excellent. And obviously not for this meeting, but maybe we could, at some future point for policy, kind of have a presentation on
Oh, yeah,
some
sure,
of the
we can-
success they've
Yep.
had there and just kind of, do a deeper dive into that. I don't want to get into that under
Absolutely.
finance.
Yeah, we can go over the program. Sharon will go over the program. She can have the adjustment counselor that works in that program join us, mentors, and actually the teachers that actually would work in that program again.
That'd be perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. We'll make it happen.
As we spoke at our last meeting or so, our declining enrollment, item number 3, it's a marketing campaign. We need to work at getting students back here to choose us over the charters, over the privates. So we want to set aside some money, not only for student enrollment, but also, now that we'll be adding staff, we want to look at doing some recruitment, some marketing to bring in teachers, add more diversity to our staffing, being able to reach out to colleges and try and attract, talented help for us. So the superintendent asked that we put a little money aside for that.
Yeah, so obviously we're down, I looked at the enrollment as of March 1st, we're down about 890 students as of March 1st. That's a big drop. Another reason we have to try to protect some of the ESSER money as we go into next October. If we continue to be down that many students, 900 students is what?
14 million.
Yeah, so we need to put together a marketing campaign to, bring these students back. Again, one of the silver linings is a lot of these students are kindergarten age, and we're hoping that those students return to us. But, you know, we really need to start to market ourselves, not only for, you know, bringing students back, but it's very important for us to, now that we're allowed to hire staff, and as you know, our goal is to bring diversity to our teaching and administrative staff, and pretty much to all the positions that we have, but this would also help us in recruiting as well.
Do we have a rough idea? Obviously, I wouldn't hold you to a guesstimate here in the middle of a meeting, but do you have an idea of how many of those 890 were lost basically due to COVID, you know, choosing different options because of, you know, us being remote and that kind of thing?
So we have a campaign now that Parent Information Center is working with Jess Hodges to actually find these families and call and find out where they are. My best guess right now is at least 450 of them have left us to
COVID-related.
either go to private schools. Some of them, again, the parents decided not to start them in kindergarten, as they have the right to do that. I think that's probably at least 200 students. But obviously, we've lost some students at the secondary level for to go to private schools, or some parents. We had more parents this year than usual, and I'll get you that number, decided to homeschool. Even though we were offering remote, they decided to just, you know, do a homeschool on their own and provide their own curriculum, which they have to obviously submit. I think we were up around 150 students. That was up probably 100 students from on average. And also part of this marketing campaign is we're a school choice district, so we obviously welcome, as you know, we do lose students that go to other cities and towns to attend school, but we would like to offer, obviously we offer that for our students as well, for students who come in from other towns locally, so we'd like to do some marketing for them as well.
Right. Great. No, this is good. I mean, as a district, we offer a lot of things that because of our size and scale, we can offer that maybe some of the other towns around us can't offer. So, you know, we need to get that message out. Excellent.
Great. The next two items have to do with social distancing. As you know, we spoke last meeting and the meeting before about using tents to have students outdoors, using plexiglass dividers for cafeteria tables or whatnot. So that's underway right now, but we don't know come September if we're going to have to social distance, you know, again, and do that into the fall. So we put some money in the budget to cover us if we have to move students outdoors, at least until maybe, you know, Thanksgiving, and then at which point we'll figure a way to get them back in. But the tents are rentals, the plexiglass shields that we buy from Dr. Cobb's gets them at MassCore. They make them for us. They sit like an X on a table, so you can put 4 people at a table. You know, we might have to modify those. Maybe we can get, you know, 6 at a big lunch table with those. But either way, it's the self-standing plexiglass shield. So we put that in the budget. Maybe come September, we don't need it. We can cut it out. But we're just going to be prepared for that.
So as you know, we have 16 tents being delivered, actually 17 if you count the large one that's going to be out here by the pool, and that's for the marching band and chorus to do outside activities. But all these tents that we're adding to the school so students can eat. As you know, they have to, some will eat inside, outside, and the reason for the tents is because of inclement weather. But we need to keep students at 6 feet apart when they're eating. That could be something that stays in place in September. We don't know yet. So we would keep the tents, if that's the case, we would keep them. And by June, I would hope that we would know the guidance for September. Because obviously we all expect to be back full pre-K to 12 in September, but I'm sure there'll still be a mask mandate, and I just don't know if the mandate it depends on what the CDC comes out with as far as distancing when students are eating. So if they keep that in place, it's just smart for us to keep the tents in place throughout the summer and because if they come pick the tents up, there's always a fee to pick them up, and then there's a fee to reset them up again. So we'd rather just leave them in place, so we would keep it in the budget. I mean, to have them come set them up, it's not cheap for them to come set them up.
And you have to call dig safe and...
Yeah, so it's best to just leave them in place. We have them until the end of the school year anyway, and I would hope by June, we would know the guidance for September.
So,
So we would own the tents, we're not renting them.
we're renting.
You're renting? Wouldn't it be less expensive to purchase them ourselves?
It would, but the problem is, I don't know where we'd put them, where we'd store them at the end. They're very large. The storage would be an issue.
Because what if we need them, you just never know what's going to happen 2022 to 2023. I mean, this could just be something that we can implement from here on.
We can get a price.
Yeah, at
we
that
get a
price
price.
point,
No, I agree.
we might just get our own trailer and store them on site.
Well, it's not just the tents that fold the storage. I mean, they're weighed down by huge cinder blocks, concrete blocks that have to be lifted and stored in place and erected.
Yeah,
So
we'll just have to get a
it's
price
quite a bit
for
of storage space. So.
Yeah, usually they go right into the pavement.
Yeah,
I know
some-
from the ones we've rented for different
Yep.
events, private events, they come out and they go right into the pavement. So we just don't
price
know.
them all out.
Yeah, we just don't know. I mean, at that price point, if it's a little more to own our own,
Right.
at this point, we can just own and leave them
Good
at the
point.
schools. And each school can actually probably use them for other events, if they could stay up.
We'll definitely get
Yeah,
prices.
I mean, it might not be that much more. Look,
No, I
look
agree.
look at the busing. I mean,
Yep.
we're buying our own busing, so it was less expensive than leasing.
Sure.
Yeah, it's worth pricing. We'd have to figure out how to set the bodies to figure out how to
Because
set them up.
that's a lot of manpower to set them up.
It is a lot of work. But we'll get a price. We'll get a price.
Yeah.
We'll get
We got a price,
and
and then we can look at,
we'll
do
factor
we have the
in-
people to
we'll
set it up,
factor in the
or?
overtime for,
Yeah.
again, it's not cheap. Tents aren't cheap, and we obviously need them now because the Department of Ed is, we're required to come in full 100%, it's K to 8 and pre-K to 8, and we need to make sure we're feeding kids safely, and that's the reason for them now. And then we'll be prepared again for September, but we'll definitely get prices.
Because if you figure we have them until, say, October, November.
Yeah, you're right.
Then we're going to need them again in the spring, so they're going to have to set them up again. It might not be a huge difference in price
Yeah, we'll
in the
try.
long run, so doesn't, if we can
Yeah.
just check into that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great.
As you know, in the past, we've taken pods at schools and turned them into classrooms.
No, they are classrooms. They just put walls up.
Well, classrooms with
So
walls.
basically, the Davis, the Raymond, and the Downey, they're pod schools, which are obviously outdated. This was something big in the 70s that they did, where these open-air pod schools, and you've all been into the Davis, the Raymond, the Downey. We have built out all pods in the Davis. We did that in-house. That was built out for, and we have one pod left there to build out. The Raymond, Dr. Cobbs, we have 3 left? 3 left to do? Two. I'm sorry, 2. And it's right here in front of me. In the Downey, there's 7. So we're hoping that some money comes through that we can use. And this is part of social distancing. It's also part of less disruptive to students without the open-air pods. So we've been wanting to finish this for a long time. And obviously, this is the price to do that. It's just, again, teachers are looking for that to be done. I agree with them, and I just think this is the time to get that, finally get it over and done with.
Makes sense. Are these prices having our own people do this?
No, this is outside. They
Okay.
come,
We have a short window to do it in, so
Right.
that's one of our problems.
because our team will be doing the rest of the rooms at North
Right.
for the
Okay.
summer.
Okay. Thank you.
As we evolve, we keep updating and changing our website. So we've put a little money aside here to redesign it and pay our renewal to make it, as we become a one-to-one district, we're relying more on our website. We're relying on our students and our parents to go on our website. So this is improvement money. The next item here, the final site, are improvements.
And renewal.
And the renewal, both, yes.
So it's both the cost for the labor
40,000
for,
and 25,000 renewal. So.
what was it? 25,000 for the renewal?
25,000 is a renewal,
Okay.
and 40,000 is the redesign of it.
That makes more sense now that I know the breakdown. I was wondering about a $65,000 redesign. Okay.
Next is the Keith School move and relocation. You discussed at the last meeting that, the city's looking at that site, we'll have to move. The mayor mentioned that they'll have money in the budget to move the school, but wherever we go and end up, we're still going to have to put our security systems in, our cameras, our technology in the classrooms. So we put aside about $100,000 for the technology and about $30,000 for our fob system and our surveillance camera system to have that up and running. So whether it's January or whether it's later, the money's in the budget so that when we do move, we'll have it be set up.
Mr. Vice Chairman, if I could.
Please.
Mr. Petronio just said the money will be in the budget. I believe the mechanism for the money will be in the bond.
In the bond,
$98
sorry.
million bond authorization. And this will just take a quick second. This Thursday night, we're having a public meeting for the public safety building. It starts at 6 o'clock, goes 6 to 7:30. We've been putting it on social media. We've hired, I think, 3 different people that are going to be able to translate multiple languages. So again, if anybody's interested, please feel free to join us. But any relocation to help the staff and students, we will be able to come up with the money for that. Thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify, that's from the school budget, the safety and security and the
Oh,
technology.
yeah. No, but in terms of the relocation cost, I believe we'd be able to get it out of
In
the
the
bond.
bond, yes. Yes. I think one of the
Okay.
meetings I saw that was already planned on, so.
So the relocation's not in this 130?
No,
Okay.
no, this is just, once we are relocated, we have to basically get, we'll bring in our desks, our chairs, but we need to set up our technology.
Okay.
As you know, now that we are one-to-one district, we're putting a generator in, because if our system goes down anywhere, we lose students. So we're looking at each individual school, and we're going to start looking at generator upgrades at the schools that seem to go down the most, or the neighborhood that goes down the most. And in this budget, we put in for South Middle School, because I think our 2 schools that have the biggest issues right now, just with National Grid power. I don't know if they're on a certain pole or on a certain line, but it seems to be the Brookfield, and it seems to be the South, or is it the Ashfield?
Ashfield, Brookfield, Ashfield, and South Middle School.
Yeah, so Jim, can you tell us about what entails the project for the generator itself?
South, they have a small generator, but it's inadequate for what our needs are, so it has to be completely replaced and upgraded, so it can, just like the one we're putting in at Central, it can actually handle the full building load, so, we're gonna put it outside instead of inside, and we have to do electrical work and install the smokestack and the plumbing, so, each unit, it's a project, but it's probably anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000 each installation,
Okay.
including all the electrical work and the permits and the buying the generator itself and the transfer switch and.
So when most of these schools were built, the electricity was to keep the lights on so you could get in and out of the building, keep maybe some heat. Whereas now we're one-to-one, we need the school, fully operational. So that's where Dr. Cobbs is saying you need a generator that can handle the full load of the school. So power goes down, you can run your heat, you can run your computers, you can run your kitchens. So that's what we're looking at as we go forward. And honestly, generators last 30 years. So as we get them done, they'll be there.
They don't run very often. So
Good long-term
back in
investment.
December of 2019, I walked through with our generator company and evaluated every building. So we have a list of each one and what the building loads are, what we need to replace the generator upgrades with. So.
And it's also important to note that this actually provides a service to the city. If, as you know, the unknown is used for a shelter. We used it once during the blizzards of 2015, is it now? And it's just good to have these running because schools could be used for emergency locations.
Right.
For anything that happens, either blizzards or loss of power or, water main breaks.
Hurricanes,
It's just
Right.
it's to have buildings up and running with heat, with their lights. It's a huge advantage for not only the school department, but the city as well.
Yeah, just again, a year ago, we stood up the gymnasium at North Middle School. BEMA did that because we thought we were going to have to use it as a quarantine site. We also did a walkthrough here at Brockton High in the gymnasium to see if we would have to get that up and running as well. So we have to plan for the worst-case scenario to get to the best case, so, yeah,
Exactly.
it's really something you don't think about, but you need it.
That building actually, Mayor, does not have a generator. There wasn't one that was there that was removed years ago, and it has nothing for any emergency backup right now. So.
We need to incorporate that.
Yeah.
And we also have repeaters for some of the police radios and fire radios within our schools, so that's something that we don't ever want to see go down.
I have a question. So for those that are watching, how many of our schools do have the backup generators? Because I know we've talked about this in the past, and I know gradually we've been bringing generators
Right.
for this reason. So if you can just let us know how many of the schools, because right now we're talking about South Middle, and
Most of the newer schools have, the Baker, the George, the Arnone, the Angelo, the newer schools have, they're adequate generators, more or less. They're better than the older middle schools that really don't have generators, and pretty much all the elementary schools, except for the newer ones, need to be upgraded, need installation, so.
definitely.
It's mostly, even the ones at the newer schools, they run the heat.
Minimum
some
systems,
emergency
right.
lighting, but they don't run the whole building.
Right,
That's just
they'll
the
like
way
run
they
the
were
heat
built.
pump so the water doesn't freeze in the system, but they don't necessarily run the full boiler to keep the water warm for the temperature.
No, definitely, because you look at the cost of it, and you just don't want to run into issues where if we do have, deep freeze, it's going to cost us more with damage.
Absolutely.
If we didn't have generators. So this is definitely a good investment for us to, gradually get as many of our schools with the generators, especially some of the older ones.
Absolutely.
But no, definitely, I know we've talked about it in the past few years. I know we've gotten some generators
Yes.
while I've been on the committee, so.
And again, this didn't have anything to do with, but you bring up a good point about pipes freezing and water pumps bursting. Here at the high school back in, I want to say it's 2012, in the Azure, on a late Friday night, a water pump went, and it had nothing to do with freezing. It just age, and it flooded the entire Azure building. And I believe, Aldo, what was the final price? I mean,
Slightly over $1 million.
so you make a good point.
So
It makes sense to get our buildings in tip-top shape and get what we need to do to avoid issues if we can. As long as we have the funds for them, and we can allocate that, it helps to do that, so.
And along with that, we have automated systems now in all of our buildings that all speak over the internet. And Alex, as you all know, who runs our heating HVAC from a laptop, he will get a notice if something goes down, if something happens. We even not only have it on the water pipes, we even have it on our refrigeration and all our cafeterias. So if a refrigerator goes down on a Saturday, rather than lose all that food, he'll get an indication. But if you have no power, he's not going to get an indication. So,
That's good, so there's an alarm system that goes off for them to alert them, changes.
and I know the city recently put that in on the water, the new water meters, that if there is a major leak somewhere, their system will tell them that a certain building or a certain area is using too much water. So they'll be able to,
They'll know there's a
you know,
problem.
fix it before there's an adverse problem.
Excellent.
Okay. The next one is self-explanatory. Paving. With all our years of cutting our budget, we've never had any money to do anything with our parking lots. We fill potholes with a little bit of tar and we tamp it with a hammer. So Superintendent wanted us to now start looking at some of our entrances and exits from our schools and our major problems and see if we can start doing some repairs. So
Yeah, this is something we've Band-Aided, obviously, for years, as you can tell just by coming into this parking lot here at Brockton High. But you're talking about, if you go around the entrance and the circle at the Davis, the Raymond, in front of North, everyone, I mean, in East, I mean, every school needs some paving done. And it's just years of, the age of the school, the parking lots, and also, obviously, the frost heaves and plowing. And, a lot of places are a mess. So I think this is a start, and again, if some more money comes in for infrastructure sometime, then we could actually do more extensive. But you're talking about parking lots that are outdated. A lot of them are not adequate for handicap accessibility with the ramps. So, this is a small amount. It's probably, if you take into consideration the entire district, and if you include Brockton High School, there's probably at least $10 million worth of paving that we could do
Right.
in all of our schools, including, it's $2 million here for Brockton High alone. And if you put all the other schools in, it's probably about $10 million total.
I thought we had looked at Brockton High a few years back.
Yeah, we actually have an estimate from,
Yeah, yeah.
from the city's company, TL Edwards, when we were looking at the solar panel option, so we do
Yes,
have an
that's what it
estimate
was.
from them.
But hopefully, you know, if we get approved for the renovation of Brockton High, we'll get that done.
That's part, yeah, that
Yeah.
obviously is part of renovation of the high school, would be a new parking lot.
Right.
Yeah, probably close to 20 years ago, the city's engineering firm, CDM, Camp Dresser McKee, looked at the entire city, and part of their conclusion of roads, whatnot, was that if we would spend a little bit of money filling cracks, we would basically be able to preserve the life of the road, because then you won't get the potholes. So if you have that, you'll see it a lot of times, you'll see it on the highway, that black crack filler. The whole purpose of that is to keep the water from going to the ground. So as we start doing some repairs to our parking lots, that's an area we can look at, and every year start filling cracks that, you know, that are just happening, and hopefully get a little more life out of our tar.
Right. Great.
And for now, finally, safety and security is always going to be on our list. Every day, we find areas to improve and fix. We're looking at, you know, more doors, more door hardware. Now we're looking at also air purifiers and filters, and even MERV filters for improving our circulation, our air quality in our schools. So between safety, you know, health, safety, and security, we put a few $100,000 in there. And I think going forward, that's an area that we're going to keep working on. You know, our schools are here, they're built. So other than hopefully when we get a new high school, I don't think we'll see another school for a while.
So obviously, we have 1,300 air purifiers that are out and about. Their filter life is, they're about 6 months, and each filter, I think, replacement is close to $150 a piece.
The filters are running from 79 to 179. They were probably 29 a year ago, but
Yeah. So, I mean, this is basically, we have to have backups, we have to keep them in stock. Something that, you know, we invested in, and through, again, thanks to the Plymouth County and, you know, 1.3 million in air purifiers, and obviously you want them to keep running, so we want to make sure we have the filters to always replace them, and they last about 6 months, and they run constantly,
Right.
obviously, so it's
so
important.
6 months to a year. Some of them
Yeah,
last a year.
some last a year.
Because there's some that have 3 phases, and you only have to replace one of the phases. The rest last longer, so.
And then, obviously, doors and hardware, I mean, you still have the old 4 junior highs that have the original doors inside, and keys, some have different keys, and we just want to make sure, again, we upgrade. Dr. Cobbs has been doing this through the COPS grant, and it's just, and I want to make it clear, this is not about making schools prisons, it's about safety, making sure that we have brand-new doors on classrooms, and they all, you know, lock the same way with the same key, and it's all standard, and people aren't looking for keys in an emergency, trying to find out, you know, remember the old custodians, and they had the key ring
Massive
with about,
ring.
975 keys on it. We're doing our best to eliminate that, and, you know, I think some of those poor people now have back issues because they carry them on their hips, and and you'd weigh them down. It's just we're trying to eliminate. So you're basically down to 3 keys,
Right.
for each school. So that's our goal, and also some of the doors are just, you know, original to the buildings. So
Right. So
it's also about safety as well, because some of them need closers and.
Right, closers, sensors, we invested in the equipment so that we cut our own keys and
Yeah.
basically create our own locks. So if we needed to change out a school, we don't have to call in someone from the outside.
Yeah, we have our own locksmith and medical system that we do ourselves now.
I was going to say, so we can do the whole master key system and all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
we own it.
And
Great, great.
Medico, the system he's talking about, every blank has to be bought and registered with the company. So no one can make themselves an extra set of keys. You can't, everyone has to be it has to be registered and
Great.
accounted for. So for us, it's very secure.
Right. Cool.
So that's what we have so far for operations improvements. Like I said, there's probably a lot more smaller items, but we'll bring those on as
So Al,
budgets
do you
come
want to
in.
just give a total
Sure.
for that, for page one?
Overall, it's about $2,941,000 for all that we discussed. And what I'm looking to do right now is put about $518,000 out of our local budget, our regular appropriation, Chapter 70, and about $2.4 million from the ESSER 2 funds. That's the $15 million we're coming through. Again, I'm trying to, anything that's like a one-time cost that is long-term, I'm trying to move under that. And I am hoping that these other funding streams come through. And again, we'll spread out, because usually the funding stream has a certain area they want you to spend or use the money in. We'll spend that out. We have time for that. But again, the nice thing is this year is that we're talking about money we have to spend. Usually it's where we're cutting. So that's what we've budgeted out so far.
Well, it's nice about this, too. You think about it, we're getting nearly $3 million of work done that we haven't been able to do for years, and it's only hitting our budget $518,000. The ESSER funds are really, that's huge.
Yes.
$3 million worth of work for 518 out of local funds.
Yes.
Great.
So the second page, we put together operations staffing considerations. And the reason we brought operations on this first is because this is something we can, these are people and positions we probably could do right now. We have so many projects coming up. We looked at where we can immediately direct staff. The first one is the technology department. As you know, we now have not only a laptop for every student, but we have one for every teacher, and we're even now having laptops for certain staff and some paras and some MTAs. So they've gone from about, my guess, about 8,000 items to almost 20,000 at this point that they're trying to maintain. So, in speaking with Dan Vigent, the Director of Technology, Dr. Cobbs, we're looking at a senior tech and a couple of computer technicians right now just to get us caught up. I don't know if you have anything on that?
So it's 20,000 laptop devices for students, it's 2,000 laptops for staff, MTAs, teachers, directors. We also have all the MiFi devices, we have the Wi-Fi to maintain in the buildings, the wiring, the computer network, the infrastructure for the servers, so there's a lot. Talking to Dan, working with Dan closely, we could actually use another 6 techs, but this at least will catch us up to where we were before we had one-to-one devices. Now we're more than one-to-one, and we're anticipating order another 2,000 student laptops for September to get them ready for, because as the other ones, become, they obsolete, they take them out of the inventory, and that's the other part of it. We have to develop a whole technology inventory management system, which is going to be labor intensive as well as cost and expense for that.
You said that Dan had said he'd really, ideally it'd be another 6 people. 6 beyond this or a total of 6?
Total 6.
Okay, all right.
So now that we are a one-to-one district, we have to look at maintaining that one-to-one. That's kind of a priority at this point.
Right. But it's hardware as well as, again, the servers in the network, and not just the laptops.
So that's why the next item on there under Dr. Cobb's, under operations, is a low-voltage technician.
So, for example, we just completed, we're putting the final touches on the intercom system here at the high school, and each we had to do each house plus the main server in the office. So to a tune of about $260,000 worth of hardware, but the installation cost for technicians from Ockers is probably another $200,000. So when we bring that in-house, we'll take that, it's just buying the hardware. And so we'll have the technician to do the wiring, connect, because we're still in the process of upgrading all the intercom systems in every building. So we're probably a little bit better than halfway through the district, replacing the old obsolete intercom system. So.
Yeah, and some of the intercom systems, and unfortunately, places like the Plouffe, they're working. The Plouffe, the Unknown, the Angelo that were built in around 92, they're pretty much obsolete already. Mm-hmm. And they work, but we don't want to get to the point where they don't work during the school day. As you know, intercoms are very important for the safety and security of a school.
Absolutely.
So,
So,
Absolutely.
we want to make sure we stay ahead of replacing parts, and some systems you can't get parts for anymore because they're obsolete, and that's the issue why we had to change out the whole entire high school. It just, you couldn't get parts. I mean, they
You
found
can't
we
get
ran out
parts,
of
so we can buy the equipment ourselves and install it and maintain, the system, the network on our own with the technician. And we have, we always already have Joe Campbell and Ken LaGrice that are, so that for that team, they can maintain the low voltage systems. So.
Great.
So we just need that one more person with the knowledge and experience for low voltage systems.
So that's the technology. What we also need is craftsmen. Superintendent and met with Jen Cobbs, with Dr. Cobbs, and with Ken Thompson, looking at right now adding possibly a plumber, 4 carpenters, 1 HVAC person. Again, we have a lot of projects going on, a lot of movement, a lot of change, a lot of repairs to be done now that we have this money to do repairs. So if you hire a firm to come in and do it, you're going to pay top dollar. As we put people on staff on salary here, we actually, as we've proven in the past, gotten a lot of bang for our buck, and we get better work, I think, because they're vested in their own projects, their own work. So I use the current rates from the craftsman schedule, the pay schedule for the positions we're looking at. Any questions? No?
Well, there's no shortage of projects to do. Again, we're going back to the North Middle School after we finish the Goddard by the end of this month, and we'll be in the North all summer. Then by the end of the summer, the Huntington roof should be repaired, so we have to go in there, and now we repair ceilings and walls and all the damage that was done caused by the water.
Well, that'd be-
carpets and painting, and so.
Yeah, that'll be the nice thing about having the Huntington roof done finally is with that roof not leaking like it did, we can now go in and do all of the other things that we
Absolutely.
would like to do and know it needs. But with the way that roof was leaking and is leaking, there was no point in doing it. We just have to keep redoing it.
Exactly.
So that'll be great to be able to finally get some nice work done in that
That's that
school.
done. It's in need of the interior work and upgrade.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the walls you've seen are actually crumbling, from the leakage from the water damage.
Right.
So.
Right. So,
We do have the challenge of only working when there's no students really, either in the room or in the building,
Well,
depending on where.
These positions always end up being night.
That's what I'm saying. So
Right.
that's when they're working. So again, it's better than hiring a firm to come in and work at night.
oh, yeah, I can imagine that wouldn't be these numbers. Yeah.
So there's always major projects of renovation. Each building, basically each summer, we'll take a building offline and go through it to repaint and plaster and clean up, do new carpets, and so that it's ongoing. So we need the extra craftsmen to continue the process.
So the next item is additional custodians. We're currently replacing people that are either retiring or have left, but now that we have the new warehouse you approved 2 meetings ago, the new warehouse and the possibility of a Promise School Intervention Center, additional person there, we're looking at a couple of new positions we feel we'll need. Any questions?
Finally,
And
Al, let's explain the transportation department that we're opening as we open a new transportation company. So these are non-net.
Mike is a reluctant warrior on this one.
Yeah, all those first items were basically from our local budget, and now this last item, transportation, will be all our non-net funds. And it's really not in addition to, it's our non-net budget, it's just, we will be paying the cost directly as opposed to
Right.
hiring out, so.
Yeah, we're
In
already,
there, I've got approximates because we'll be advertising, and then depending on people's experience and skills, we'll set a salary. We have a range, is kind of what I put in there. I put in more of the higher end of the range probably, but, we'll have a director, manager, someone that's running the overall facility, a
Actually,
supervisor.
that'd be running the day-to-day operation.
Running the
of
day-to-day.
transportation.
Yes.
And so that director will report directly to me, and they'll run the overall transportation, responsible for all the personnel underneath, in the transportation department.
And obviously, somebody that needs to know the transportation business, the safety protocols, the
Right.
certifications that have to happen from the state, licensing, everything that makes vans and buses safe.
So who's going to give you oxygen while we first roll this out?
I might take
be
a couple
fine, Mike.
months, I might have to go on like a sabbatical for a couple months
It'll be okay. Mike.
until it's up, and then you can call me when everything's up and
We'll get
running.
it done.
Yep.
We'll get it done.
It'll be okay.
So as a supervisor, basically that's the person that's doing safety. Has to be a safety manager that is running out to any location when there's an issue with the bus. If there's an accident, a safety supervisor has to report to the scene to take a report. It's required by the state. Also, they would have to meet with the police on site to take a report and make sure that if there's any issues with either the bus, whether the bus can proceed, because sometimes we have fender benders, and sometimes they check all the kids, make sure they're fine, and then they have to check the bus to make sure it's fine, and there has to be a certified safety officer, and then that person would allow first it's the police in EMS that make a decision whether the bus can go anywhere. Once they determine the kids are fine, then that safety supervisor has to evaluate the bus or van to see if we needed to bring another van or bus to take the kids off and put them on and send them, or they let the bus go on its way. So that's what that person does. So they're basically all over the city when there's any issues. A dispatcher, obviously, that's the person that will work directly with Peggy to make sure that all the buses are running on time, students are being picked up, making sure that, obviously, if there's a student that hasn't been picked up, making sure the bus goes back and van goes back to pick the student up. These things all happen in transportation. You all know you've gotten calls from parents, and the last thing we need is and want parents to be inconvenienced if their child's not picked up at a time they're told they're going to be picked up and they need to get to work. We need to make sure that we remedy that quickly and get another van to pick the child up or a bus to pick the child up, so we're not leaving poor kids home and not a way to get to school when the parents need to get to work. So that's not anything we need, and that's why you have to make sure we have the safety coordinator. And obviously Aldo bus drivers and van drivers.
Bus drivers, yes, we'll be putting a job ad out for that very shortly. We need some for the summer, hopefully, and the rest will be for September. So we already are receiving inquiries from people who are asking when they can start sending their applications in, so we hope we get a pretty good amount of them coming in. It would be great to have the director or supervisor on first to start evaluating all those. Someone that really understands the licenses they have and the experience and who they worked for, and has a good feel for the industry. So those are what we're trying to get out first. So I put in the bus drivers, I put in an amount for their benefits. Looking at a couple of mechanics, start off. Buses will all be brand new, but still mechanics daily will check them, make sure that everything's running well. The buses are all coming equipped with a handheld device called a Zonar. Jim, you're more familiar with it than I am about how it works.
So the Zonar, you literally have to walk around the building with around the bus with a handheld device, and each zone has a node that it reads, and so it shows that the driver has checked whether it's the tires, the wheel well, the the engine compartment, whatever. Everything needs to be like a walk around. You see, if anybody you fly an airplane and you see the pilots do a walk around the plane before they do, we'll require the driver to do a walk around before and after. And one of the ones that I really want to see in place is one at the rear of the bus. That the driver has to go back and scan at the end of the route each day to make sure that they've checked every seat and then scanned before they leave the bus at the end of the day in the bus yard.
So every driver will have a handheld device, and it'll all...
And reports back to the dispatch in real time, so we can actually read each login for each zone, for each bus every day.
I have a question. So that'll be done in the morning, once they get to the bus, they're going to check it, and then they're going to check it at the end of their.
At the end of the run, each run, each
So
tier.
it's a multi-check every day.
Absolutely.
It's a safety, which is.
What times?
Which is
Absolutely.
wonderful,
4
because,
times
I
a day.
mean, that's going to help us catch something if there is an issue going on with the bus. That could be long-term saving us some money as far as repairs.
Absolutely.
So they'll get alerts and stuff if there's an issue.
Absolutely. And again, the dispatcher, anybody in the transportation department can go log in and read any particular bus and check, if there's any issue, we can go back and check in real time and have a
Right, so
recording of it.
if you can envision, inside the bus, they have to walk to the back of the bus and pretty much touch the sensor to their Zonar. So if there's a child asleep on a seat, they're going to see him. Whereas some of these buses, as you know, they just park and they leave and they forget. So this was one item that, at the very beginning, we said we had to have in the buses, because it really, really covers us on that.
Also, in our dispatcher center, we'll have real-time heads-up display, with the monitors with each bus, by number and where its location is and the driver, and we can track its speed, who's driving the bus. If it's stopped in a place too long, we can real-time, we can go in and look in the camera system and see where the bus is, what's going on.
If they go over the speed limit, there's an indicator that'll tell us.
They'll get an alert if they've gone. It's all about safety. You have other people's children with you,
Yes.
and you're transporting them, so safety is
Absolutely.
number one.
Absolutely.
That's a wonderful feature to have, and being able to scan the buses and see if there's any issues, that's going to be saving us in the long term on repairs, because if there is an issue, they're going to get alerted right away. Again, another safety issue while they're transporting our students.
We have governors on the bus, you can't go over 75 miles an hour, so.
Oh,
should hope not on those buses.
75 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
They were doing
Brockton
a field
speed.
trip and on the highway.
Last time we went,
exactly, you're
we
going
went to the
downhill.
Capitol.
Now I'm really going
30.
to take a,
I think we took the bus to the State House, and I can't imagine that going 75.
Oh, please,
That was
stop.
uncomfortable.
I could have them going 25 down the highway.
the golf cart will go faster.
Yeah, and I've ridden on the yellow bus last year. I went on a couple of field trips, and I wish it was going 75 miles. It was a painful trip.
Especially if it's the winter time, you get that cold breeze.
Yeah, they were not comfortable. Our new buses should be more comfortable.
not
They
blessed.
were not comfortable.
So, Aldo, what was that? What?
Zonar. it's called.
Zonar. So
Zonar.
is that something new, or are other schools?
State, First Student uses it as well.
Oh, they
Most
do?
most large bus companies have that in place. And it allows us to actually, when a parent complains now, Peggy calls First Student, says, can you check the Zonar? Because the parent's saying the van didn't show up. They'll check Zonar and confirm that the van or bus didn't show up, and we're able to address the issue with them. But now, obviously, it'd be our own employees.
Okay, thank you.
And it's the other thing from the dispatch. If a parent calls and says, hey, my child hasn't been picked up yet, or where's my child, we can actually go real time and take a look at where it is and say it'll be at your house in 5 minutes or 15 minutes, or it's delayed because of a traffic accident, and it'll be, so it gives us real-time data. We can.
And actually, we can, there's an app that comes with it that we'll put back. It's called Where's My Bus? So the parents could download it on their phone. And if they're waiting at a bus stop, they could actually, on their phone, check the app. Bus van 23, they can check to see where it is. Is it down the street, or is it still 10 minutes away? And so we'll be able to have that option as well.
Great.
So as I said, we'll have a couple of mechanics and an administrative assistant. There'll be, I'm sure, a lot of paperwork has to be filed with the registry, with the state on every bus, continually, their inspections and all our upkeep and maintenance records. So that should be enough to get the office up and running. And that's what we're looking to do pretty much immediately.
All right. If I could ask a couple of quick questions. I noticed on the drivers, we've got a range. So did we base this number of 2 million on the low, the high end? Did we average it? How'd we arrive?
It's about average. I did about average in that range. And again, it'll be looking at the experience of the drivers as we hire them. And at the same time, when you hire drivers, you also ask for their record from the Registry of Motor Vehicles. See, how their record is and whatnot, so.
Right. And how many hours a week does the typical driver usually run?
For other companies, I think 5 hours a day, but I did our budget on 6 hours a day.
Budgeted
And I went about 10 days over, about 190, 191 days, because we're going to require training, before and after. As we hire new drivers, you maybe have them shadow with another driver, so I factored that in, that additional cost of the training and the shadowing. And
Great, great. All right, good. I'm glad you thought of that and factored that in. And also, excuse me, I assume we're going to have to do some work to the building. It's not perfectly set up as is. There's going to be some things it's going to need. I didn't see,
most of that I'm trying to do out of this year's budget.
okay,
So I'll have some more funds, I feel, left over from this year's non-net. And with that, we'll do the shop equipment, the lift for the bus, the setup for parts like brake pads, batteries, tires, tools for the shop. A little bit
Aldo
more.
would like to get that stuff at Ocean State Job Lot, but I
No,
convinced
no,
him that
no,
that's
no.
not the way we have to go.
No,
no, where you find quality tools.
yeah.
I mean, that's where I get my tools, but that's not what we're going to be using to fix buses and vehicles.
You're not
so
fixing buses in your
convinced
backyard
that
either.
he needs to go to,
Yeah,
obviously, a
no.
professional company.
Right.
Yes.
You had mentioned you were going to pre-buy tires to
In
be
a-
ahead of the game.
In our quote with the buses, we have a dozen tires for the buses already pre-purchased, they're about $500 each. And what we'll do is we'll be set up with a local tire vendor that if we get a flat or any problem with a tire, we put our new one on and ship our tire to them to repair, whether they put a plug in it or whether they change the whole tire, whatever they need to do, they'll maintain them for us. But there's probably 3 different shops in the area that do that work. So,
So that's good, yeah, just as long as, we don't run into back order on anything. As long as it's something they'll be able to get us, you just never know.
yes, yes. Again, that's why we're buying up front. This is with the first half. As we buy more buses, we'll buy more tires. We're really going to be looking at oil changes, brake pads. Engine-wise, it's under warranty, so we expect the manufacturer to take care of us on that. But the regular daily maintenance items, we ordered extra radios, we ordered extra cameras. So any of these items that break, we've got them in stock already, and we're going to basically swap it out, put the new one in, and let the manufacturer or the repair shop deal with fixing it. We're not going to take a bus offline because of the camera broke. We'll basically swap it out. So we think we have about 10 extras of each of those up front.
Great.
So,
All right. Excellent. Any questions from the members of the committee?
So just a couple things to add, because again, we're focused on operations tonight, but I just want to make it clear to, parents that are listening and staff that, again, this has nothing to do with the SOA funding. That will be focused on class size, the needs to reduce the achievement gap, student achievement, that will all be tied, and that will be positions, certified positions. This is curriculum and materials will be in the budget. For our teachers, I really want teachers to stop spending their own money on material, which they have done for years, some hundreds of dollars a year, some thousand. So we want to make sure we put it in our budget to not allow, so they don't have to do that anymore. Teachers are always going to go and buy different things that they like, but, the bulk items that they need, folders, pens and pencils and crayons, they shouldn't be buying those things. So we want to make sure that we're providing for teachers. But again, this money is not going to take away what we need to support our schools. That's extra staff, certified staff, administrative staff, support staff. We do want to continue to go back to where we were last year and make sure that every pre-K and kindergarten class has their own paraprofessional. That's another goal. We obviously know we have to add guidance counselors and adjustment counselors. So, I just want people to understand that, tonight we're talking about this because of the ESSER money, but the SOA money and obviously some of the ESSER money will be focused on making sure we have the teaching staff, the administrative staff, and the support staff, and the materials and curriculum our teachers need to do their job. Because, again, they have gone through a long process of cuts. So we want to make sure they have what they need as well. And like Mr. Minicello said, this money from SOA comes with accountability. And that means we need to make sure our schools, our administrators, our teachers, and support staff have the tools that they need to do their job. So, and we understand there's also contracts that are up. So we are budgeting as well for raises in contracts, because we are bargaining with, I believe, 5 of our bargaining units now. So, and you're all in the middle of that, so that won't be forgotten in the budget as well. And we'll continue to work with our union presidents. But I just want to make it clear, tonight we're focused on operations, but in no means does that mean SOA money or all, is going to go towards operational things. This is, again, money we're getting, we spend, it lasts us a long time, and it's nothing that we have to lay off. And I just think this is a good way to go about it, but I just want to make sure people out there understand that your child's education, it needs a good environment, safe environment for them to learn in, teachers to teach in, but, as we move through this budget over the next month, it will be clear the positions that we're going to need that are tied to accountability, tied to making sure our students are doing a lot better, and there's got to be extra positions that we have to put in to help our students recover from COVID. I mean, Ethan will present the STAR testing, the second round of STAR testing. You'll see there's no hiding. Kids have fallen behind in remote learning. There's no replacement for in-person, and we have to make sure we have the teaching and the support staff available and in the budget to make sure we not only fill the holes that we've had for 10 years of budget cuts, but also put things in place to help our students recover from the learning loss that has happened during COVID. So just want to make that clear as tonight we focus on operations, but obviously as we move forward and before we send the final budget to the mayor, all of that will be in our budget to make sure our teachers need and staff need what they to do their job, and additional staff as well.
Great.
That's all I have.
Any questions or comments from the members of the committee before we move on to other business? Mr. Rodriguez.
Aldo can jump in on this. Speaking of operations, Davis, Raymond, and West, how can we address the lighting issues with the athletic fields that we have there? They've been down for numerous years, and I think our, city groups and youth are losing out by not having.
Parks Department?
No, those are ours.
I'm just trying to picture which lights, Davis, Raymond, and West.
The field lights,
Lights.
baseball, and then also, looking at rolling out middle school football. City of Brockton, we pride ourselves on being city of champions, and we only have one synthetic turf field, and that's at the high school. And there's numerous groups that are breathing down our necks to permit fields so they can play their sports, soccer, football. I think it's time that we look at that, because we are losing a lot of students in this city through athletics because we don't have the facilities to sustain that. So I would like to see something.
Dr. Cobbs, if you can look at those lights and find out if it's just the light itself or is it the actual.
I know at West Junior High, one of the poles went down. Prior to that, it was a lightning strike, so the lights haven't been working. The Raymond was the same issue. At the Davis, they were, the poles, I believe they're still up. I'm not sure. I think they probably came down. But I think that needs to be addressed. They're there. They were put there for a reason, and we don't have that in the city. Specifically the turf fields.
Okay, so, but the poles are down or they're there with no lights on them?
No poles.
There are no I could give a piece of information about West Junior High because I used to coach up there all the time. When Mayor Carpenter was the mayor, I had a meeting with Bill because there were no lights there. The utility was not going to fire that up again. Those poles were utility-owned poles up there. Kids had run into them. It become really a hazard. So I met with the mayor, and we internally, the city, which was the Parks Department, Tim Carpenter, and in the facilities on the school, we cut those down because they were never going to be wired again. The electrical company said, West Junior High, we're not going to do that. So that's why there's no poles there now. They were taken down as a precaution for the kids that were running around.
And also one snapped during a
One
windstorm. Yeah, they
fell
were,
during a sporting event.
they were
Yeah,
compromised.
the other schools, I don't know. I just knew about West Junior High because I was involved in that.
But we can definitely have Gone Green, our company, come out and give us an estimate.
Yes, we can estimate, we'll need an estimate for a pole to get put in, and then we'll need an estimate for, I don't know if the wires are running underground, if they run off
Yeah,
a
we can
building.
just, that's, our outside electrical company will have to come in and give us a,
Okay,
evaluate where, like West, it was totally lost. The underground wires went, I want to say, back in,
That was 2006.
so.
We were out there when it actually
Yeah.
got hit by lightning.
oh, really?
Yeah. So, and Dorgan was the Parks Commissioner
Yeah.
at the time, so that's how far back it is.
Wow.
We also, because youth football was utilizing West Junior High, West Middle School, the Baroncelli Field, which is now designated for Baroncelli in the back, that's why we have the retractable fence there, so it's not geared just for baseball. We could take it down so football or soccer can participate, or softball as well. But that's why you look at the field to the right, it's a breakaway field so that youth football can play there as well. But you bring up a good point, Tony, we should look into that.
Yeah, and also, I think, we have to do a deep dive into making the facilities with turf fields so we can get more usage out of them. Specifically rolling out, adding middle school football, which that will be brought up, but also soccer. So if you go to all 4 our junior highs, we don't have the facilities to sustain athletics, and I think that needs to be addressed because we are losing a lot of. It kind of irks me when I look at the number 1 running back in the state playing at CM, but he lives in Brockton. So we have to address that.
Okay. I'll put it on my list. Building a turf field is really something beyond our budget, but with the city involved, we can.
Pretty
Yeah,
sure
that's
It's a
what it
capital
takes.
project. It's got to go
It's a
through the
capital,
city.
it is.
There was a capital project when Moses was the mayor of Brockton.
Yeah.
And, that's still definitely in the queue. It was a lawful vote. I voted for it as a city councilor. So that was relative to the Keith Field.
Yep.
And then there was another field, I think O'Donnell's, that's being renovated. But the Keith Field was earmarked for, we used to call it AstroTurf, whatever it is, whatever it's
Yeah,
called now.
synthetic.
So that's still viable. It's a capital project, and we'd have to go back before the city council relative to any increase relative to a bond authorization.
So would the school committee submit a letter to the mayor requesting?
The matter is already before facilities relative
Yeah.
to the
Yeah,
Keith
it's in
Field.
the facility.
Facilities is working on this and had a fairly recent meeting and is gathering some information from a couple different sources so that facilities can meet again, was the way we left it at that last facilities meeting. So I anticipate we'll have facilities meeting again in the not-too-distant future, once we're able to,
So
all
Melinda,
that stuff's pulled
can
together.
you work with Ms. Azak to get that scheduled?
In the works.
Yep.
Wonder if these new LED lights can be solar panel on a pole with a battery, so you don't need to run underground wires and power that. I don't know,
point.
but maybe we
Might
can
be the
find
way to
out
do
if
it.
Yeah.
they could do
Cuts
something like
costs
that.
too.
We'll have
with-
Gone Green come out. Dr. Cobbs will get a hold of them, and they're the ones that actually did the new LED lights at Brockton High, and we did that through Northeast Electrical. No, we did that through the grant from.
We
the
had a grant.
We had a grant through and we'll look at those too. Sometimes
state.
there's grants because of energy efficient grants that we have done a ton of work with LEDs. Actually, that's what paid for the new LED lights at the high school in the
Exactly.
stadium. So we'll look and see what's out there for grants as well. We did actually the Brockton High indoor pool with that grant as well, and I think we've done a ton of hallways and
We did
gymnasiums.
parking lots, yes, a lot
And
of hallways. in
actually, the
schools.
mayor, we've done all LEDs across the city, correct?
Across the city,
Yep.
100%, for the telephone poles.
Yeah.
We are currently looking at LED relative to the baseball field, the Rock Stadium, Campanelli, under the Amoresco contract. We're doing a price comparison. LED. I mean, it's substantially a lot more money, but the life expectancy is so much longer, it might make sense. So we can incorporate that into the mix, get a couple different price quotes, that'd be help. But talking about lights, I remember when we were standing that sweltering day honoring the boys and girls graduating, I made a humble suggestion that the poles at Marciano Stadium should be painted red and black or something to jazz it up. So now with the good weather, today being 70 degrees, we got to get that back on track.
That'd be great. I remember you making that suggestion, you're right, as we were standing there melting.
And we have a lift, thanks to Representative Cassidy, that can reach up there.
Yep.
Great.
The lift has come in handy everywhere.
So maybe we can get that in as part of our prep for graduation this
We'll
year.
have it done before graduation.
Excellent. All right.
Turf fields. Let's go, Aldo.
I heard a rumor you wanted some more turf fields.
I do.
3 of them, 3 or 4.
5. All the junior high should be turf field. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to see.
Right.
I'm
And
with
we
you.
may not-
We're with you. Absolutely.
No, I'm with you on that. We may not be able to do them all at the same time, but maybe over a few years we can get to that point,
Put a master plan together and tackle it. So,
Yeah.
so now everybody wants to use Marciano, and there's not enough space.
Not enough
Right.
time.
Right.
So we need it.
Right.
No, there's certainly a need for more turf than just Marciano in the city at this point. I mean, that's clear. But
I'd actually like to look into put turf behind the skating rink, which would really help. Yeah, the
Yep.
Policino fields to help.
there's a
with-
field behind the
Talk about
stadium.
turf, I also just want to take a
Yeah.
moment to thank facilities. Recently we had a rash of arson here in Brockton, and someone tried to light up the turf at Marciano, and they did some damage, minor damage thankfully, but it was repaired within 24 hours internally. So kudos to everybody involved on that. Thank you.
Excellent.
And thanks to Dr. Cobbs and Joe Campbell, we were able to get, our surveillance camera was able to get a good picture, a photo of the person they think was responsible.
Excellent. Well, hopefully we find out who that person is and, because anyway. All right, anything else relating to agenda item number 1? Okay, we're going to move on. Agenda item number 2, any other business? None. All right, so in that case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn by Ms. Asak, properly seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. I will call the roll. Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Sully in it?
D'Agostino is a yes. Ms. Asak.
Yes.
Mrs. Mendez.
Yes.
Mr. Minicello.
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan. We may have lost him. Okay. All right. We are adjourned. Thank you for your time this evening, everyone.